Right? We see that working in computers. I mean, an operating system vulnerability can leave you wide open to attack. Right? There's an example of a failure that's failing badly. And we know that, and we need to fix that. In the real world, there's a lot more attention paid to failing well. Right? If this security measure fails, we have a backup measure, which is why you see at airlines different levels of security, the notion of defense in depth. We don't really have that on the internet yet. We need to get that. So there are two examples of sort of things we've learned in either area. We're sort of moving back and forth.
When we talk of security, you've said that ID checks, background checks, isn't really solving the problem. Then what exactly is ID checks really doing? Is a lot of people in, let's say, for example, certain free movements would say that it's taking away freedom as opposed to the security side of things. How would you respond to that?
Well, I think ID checks are primarily a way of looking like you're secure. I mean, I had to show a photo ID to get into this building to participate in this conference. Now, what did that actually achieve? Someone looked at my ID. Right? What we want is we want to figure out intentionality. Right? Is this person going to do something bad? And that's very hard to do. Checking an ID is a panacea. It's a way to pretend we're doing something. So I think primarily it's a way to look like we're doing something. I think it is a surveillance measure. I think it does take away freedoms, but I don't think that's the purpose. I don't think the governments are saying, let's take away some freedoms. I think they actually think that an ID check is improving security. And I think they think that because they don't look at security as a system. They don't understand how ID checks fit in with the overall security posture. So I think primarily it's ignorance. I don't see a lot of maliciousness. Yes, it's taking away freedoms. Yes, it's taking away liberties. But I don't think that's the point. I think that's just a side effect.
Part of the methodology of open source is about communication, transfer of information. With regards to that, again, does it make your job a lot harder? Because with increased communication, security is a hindrance.
Well, there's always a trade-off between security and usability. Right? Security is always a hindrance, whatever it is you're doing, whether it's a lock on your front door or a protocol that stops you from communicating when you want to. I mean, security is always going to be a hindrance to what you want to do. And that's always the battle we fight. Right? Corporations have that problem. The security officer wants to install this kind of countermeasure, and the company says, no, our employees need to do their job. So there's always that tension. And I think that's a good thing. Right? Security is always a trade-off. We trade off what we get versus what we give up. And if we give up too much, then it's not worth it. Now, I mean, you could put a lock on your house, throw away the key, and your house is secure. But you can't get in. So you install a key. Now, a key is a vulnerability. Someone can steal the key, and they can break into your house. But that's a vulnerability we accept willingly because we need the usability. Right? A VPN is another example. We put a VPN on a network, which is basically a hole through the firewall, because we need access. Now, that hole adds a vulnerability. We do our best to secure it, but we need the access. So, yes, as we have more communication, as the internet becomes more useful, security becomes more of a hindrance, but that's not a bad thing. That's success.
What would you say is the most outlandish security breach with regards to computers that you've heard of, and perhaps if you have a story to share similarly with regards to open source?
I have a company called Counterpane Internet Security, and we do security monitoring. So we monitor customers' networks and in real time watch for breaches. And we see all sorts of things. We see, I mean, the most interesting story that I like to use is we're monitoring a major airline, and we see someone trying to break into the human resources server from the inside. So we call up the airline, and we say, hi, this is Counterpane. Here's the IP address of one of your computers. We don't know where it is on your network, but you do. But you need to go to that computer right now, look at the person sitting in front of it, because he's breaking into your human resources server. The airline did that. It turned out to be a reservations agent working in an office in Mexico City. And that person was trying to break into the corporate network. And the airline caught the person doing it. They terminated him. And there's an example of an insider attack. And insider attacks are very nasty because they are actually inside the corporate network. And we at Counterpane caught that because we monitor. And so there's an example of an interesting security story. And these are security stories that never make the news. Right? Most stories you never see in the press. The airline didn't press charges. They just fired the employee, and that was that.
To the end user at home, and that we talk about open source, and part of the beauty of it is that with free and open source, you're able to download an OS off the net, don't pay a cent. But now, getting back to the aspect of vulnerability and viruses, how does an end user make sure that when he's downloading something which is free and for nothing initially, that he might not be downloading something which might also have a virus?
And sure, and that's possible. I mean, you could download a program that has a Trojan or a virus attached. The way to avoid that is to only download from reputable sources. I mean, there are mechanisms, signing code, and they work for an intelligent user. But for an average user, that's going to be too complicated. What I would recommend is only download from reputable sources, and to be careful, not to download from anywhere. And that could be a worry regardless of your software. You're surfing on the net, and you're told to see this, you have to download this Java plugin. Well, that could be malicious. You have to be careful. Only go from reputable sources. I actually think it's worth paying a little bit of money to get a CD-ROM of the operating system from one of the companies that package it. I mean, you're paying a little bit of money, but you're buying support, you're buying security, you're buying reliability, you're buying the assurance that it's not a Trojan copy of the operating system. Alternatively, you go on the internet to one of the sites that is well known for having good code. I download free code from twocows.com, and not often, but once in a while there's a program I want. I've never had a problem. They're a reputable source. If there was a problem, they would fix it quickly. They would alert you. Going out anywhere, that's where you have to worry. But I don't think it's that bad. I know lots of people who download things, and I've never heard horror stories. If you download hacker tools, a lot of them are Trojans. But if you're downloading an MP3 player, you're downloading a free game off a reputable site, you're downloading a copy of Linux, the incidences of hacked versions are very, very rare. It's mostly okay. And there's an example of the balance of security. There are all sorts of theoretical problems, but for the most part, everything's okay. It's sort of a surprise, actually.
Have you been planning to, with regards to your own business and perhaps in the security community, have you been looking into providing open source packages with regards to security and antivirus software for those platforms?
Well, right now we monitor open source products. We monitor the Linux operating system. We monitor Apache. We use Snort, an open source IDS, when we monitor some of our customers. So Counterpane has always been product agnostic. That we like to say we monitor everything. And as open source products get more popular, we're going to monitor them. We use Linux in our monitoring box because it's much easier for us to control it and make it more secure. We can strip out the things we don't need. So already we deal with open source. And many of our customers are open source savvy, and they are using open source products in concert with traditional commercial products. And most networks are a hybrid. Right? Apache is very popular. Snort is gaining popularity as an IDS. When a company comes to us and says, we're using the ISS intrusion detection system, we say, great, we'll monitor it. When they come to us and say, we don't have an IDS, well, we want you to manage one, we say, well, use Snort. It's free, and it's just as good as the other ones. So, I'm a strong proponent of open source. I think it's done great things. I think it's done more to improve Microsoft security than anything else, just by being competition.
Are developing world communities more, should we say, vulnerable from a security perspective?
I don't think they are. The attackers go where the money is. A lot of the phishing attacks, for example, seem to target the United States and Europe. the countries where people have lots of